Hey YouTube, Do-It-Yourself Junkie 369 here today. I'm going to be showing you how to set up your grill for smoking. I also use the term barbecue. To me, smoking and barbecue are about the same thing. Barbecue is not going out and grilling hot dogs and hamburgers. That's grilling. All that can be done on a normal Weber kettle grill. There's no need to go out and buy an electric smoker or a charcoal smoker or anything else of this sort. You can just use this kettle grill. And if you have the smaller, like Smoky Joe kettle grill, you might be able to smoke on that. You'd be really limited on how much you can put in there at one time. With this, I can do like a 20-pound turkey, a huge pork butt, or like 6 racks of ribs at one time. And on a note, those racks of ribs are full racks, like 13 bones, versus what you usually get in a restaurant. A half rack is like 4 and a full rack is like 8. Basically, they're able to create a whole full rack and a half rack off of one full rack, actual rack of ribs, and then sell it at extreme prices. There's been a couple places I've been to that don't do that, and they're worth their money when you go there, if you find one. So first thing I'm going to do is clean all the ash out from last time I used it. Now today I'm going to show you 2 different fires to use in this thing. One is a small fire that's good for cooking stuff like ribs, because you have to check them about every half an hour. And you just want a little bit of charcoal, all lit at the same time, set up on one side of the grill, which I have this grate that can open. So usually I just dump it in there in a pile and keep it where this opening of the grate is. Or you can buy one of these accessories, which I'll link below, and it'll come with 2 of them. I just used one, but you could put one on either side if you were cooking something like a turkey. And they won't fit through the open grate, so you want to put them in before you start. You just put that in there, and that kind of holds your charcoal in that basket off to one side, so it's not falling all over the grill. So your first fire is a small one that has to be constantly tended. And what you do is you fill up that and you light all the coals on fire. And for lighting them on fire, you can use one of these chimneys and get them going. This is great because you put like some crumpled up newspaper. Make sure you use only the normal print. Don't put the colored ads or anything in there. That will give off some sort of toxic fumes. Or you can light it with a propane torch, my favorite method, and then dump it into the container. And so all the coals in the container in the grill are going at one time. You put your ribs in, you start smoking, and then every half an hour you're going to open up the grill, throw in some new charcoal as the stuff burns down, and you do that as your first step. And then you spend the rest of the time putting mop sauce on your meat and stuff, and you let a chance for that charcoal to catch on fire before you close the lid back up. So I would say about every half hour you're opening the grill, about every hour you're tending the fire. So you've got to continuously watch that style of fire. The other style is what I like to call a 9-hour fire. That's about how long it will burn. You fill up this chimney with charcoal and you dump it in the container. Then from there, you can either, if you want a smaller fire that doesn't last quite 9 hours, you pick out about 15 coals, dump them back in there, and then you light just those coals. And that's the method I'll be doing today. And I left about 15 in there. I didn't bother counting them. 15 to 20 works good. The rest of them are in the grill. So now I'm going to light these and dump them on top of this unlit charcoal. And those will, as the fire burns, catch and burn down And it's a slow process because it's burning down from the top, and it will last about 8 to 9 hours. So you can put something like a brisket in there and go to bed and wake up the next morning and have brisket ready to go for the day. And that's why I like this method the most. So I don't quite need a fire that will last this long, because today I'm cooking ribs, but I wanted to show you how to make that. And that's the 2 fires that I use for smoking on this grill. One is short term, has to be constantly tended, and that's where you light all the charcoal and dump it off to one side. The other is you dump a whole bunch of unlit charcoal off to the side, light about 15 coals, dump that on top, and it only needs to be checked maybe once or twice to make sure it hasn't gone out and that you have the louvers set correctly to maintain your temperature. When I first start either of these fires, the louvers on both the top and the bottom are full open until I get it going. And then to control temp, you're going to end up closing both of them. And on the top, you want just a little crack. That's about the proper position to maintain a good smoking temperature of about 250 degrees, or a little bit lower, about 225 to 250 is what I'm aiming for. On the bottom, I won't be able to really show it, but it's a crack about that wide. So about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch, somewhere in there. And you're just going to have to play with those until you hit the temp that you want. So you adjust, come back in about 15 minutes to half an hour and check the temp. And it's going to take a while to get used to what works for you on your current conditions, and it'll change every day based on like humidity and temperature and how windy it is. So as far as what produces the smoke, you can use either lump hardwood. This one I've got mesquite. Usually I prefer oak and hickory. I just don't have any of that right now. I need to go buy some more. Or you can use the chips. If you use the chips, you're going to want to soak those in a bowl of water before putting them on the fire. So you get your fire going, and then you place those directly on top of the coals when you're ready to cook, and it'll start smoking. And that, depending on what you're using, what method, the chips are going to usually burn faster, even wet. So you'll have to check every once in a while and maybe add some more chips. The chunks are good for doing long overnight cooks, like that brisket that I'll show you in a video later, which is going to go for 9 hours, and you might end up adding a couple chunks of hickory or something when you first start cooking, and then maybe about halfway through when you check on it, make sure nothing's going wrong. And as far as starting your chimney, as I mentioned, you can use rolled up, or not rolled up, but crumpled up newspaper. You want to crumple it kind of tightly and pack it in there and light it, and then just let the chimney sit like this, and it'll draw in air and light the coal above it. And that works for either smoking or grilling. This method will work for both. Just with grilling, you'll dump it in the grill and spread it out over the entire grate instead of do this fire to one side. And basically you want the fire over here on one side when you're smoking, and put your meat over here on the other side to slow down the cooking action due to radiation. You want more of a convective cooking. Other things you can do to light this is they make little wax blocks as fire starters. Those are good. They make little balls. I call them bird's nests. They're like wadded up slivers of wood, chips or whatever. Basically they look like a balled up piece of grass, and that lights real easy and will sit under there and start your fire. And I think the wood is coated in wax as well to help it burn. You could go out, gather up kindling, which would be like small twigs, dried grass, leaves, stuff like that. Some people, they'll just coat it with lighter fluid and go. One thing that was covered on BBQ Pitmasters, which is the show I kind of got me into barbecuing. I was watching it and I pretty much said, oh, I can do that, no problem. They are really against lighter fluid, and they say that if you use lighter fluid to start your fire, you'll be able to taste it. I've started fires for years with lighter fluid, and I can't really tell the difference, honestly. I guess if I didn't let all the lighter fluid burn off before cooking on it, it'd be a problem. But usually that lighter fluid is gone, although they've claimed that it sticks to the grill even. I guess maybe that's the difference between like throwing charcoal in a grill and covering it with lighter fluid versus in the chimney burning all the lighter fluid off and then transferring it to the grill. Either way, it's kind of hokey to me because lighter fluid's designed to burn off, and by the time you're around to cooking something, there shouldn't be any like traces that could make your meat taste funny. So I think it's kind of bogus. Now today I'm going to be using a propane torch. This is like a weed burner torch. It's got other uses other than starting my barbecue grill. It's great for doing kind of controlled burns on brush, like back burns and type stuff. Starting campfires, it's really great for that. Starting burn piles, killing weeds, like you go out and torch a weed with this, it's never coming back. Usually I use it in like rocky or on my driveway where I'm not going to set something else on fire because it is really hot and it will cook stuff surrounding it. And I'll include a link for this down there if you really want to go this route. And so normally I just cook it on the side of my grill and then turn up the flame. You probably could jerry-rig one of these into some sort of forge too. And once you use that, it is really hot. So I have a fireproof mat on the top of my deck that I just laid on, but you want to make sure you don't lay it up against anything that burns. Now that the coals are going, which any method I described before will work on this, you add them to the top of the unlit coals in this method. And this is really hot too, so it goes on the fireproof mat. And here is what the fire looks like. Pretty much you got lit coals on top, unlit coals on the bottom, and now I'll add in some chunks of wood. If this was the other method, you would get all of the coals lit and then dump them in there. So here's what the short-term fire looks like. I left the lid off of this, so all the coals lit up. And then after that's complete, you just add your chunks of wood on top. If you're using chips to create your fire for ribs, it doesn't matter too much. You can just pile some on there, and since you're tending to the fire every half hour, you'll come back and add additional chips to keep the smoke going. And at the same time, you'll let the grill come back up to temp a little bit with the lid off to get some air circulating, and you'll have a chance to brush the mop sauce on your ribs. If you can see in there, we're going to close the bottom vents down until there's about that much of an opening. And our mesquite is already starting to smoke, and I have the top set just like that. And we'll let the temp come up while we go and prep the meat and see if it is in the area that we want it to be in, which is about 225, 250 is usually where I cook at. And if it's too high, we'll close these up more. If it's too low, we'll open them up a little bit. And just remember, it's going to take a little while for it to react to those changes. And it'll probably drop if you take the lid off. And you can see it's already climbing up there. It's pretty hot in there. You may notice when I close up my grill, I stick the dampener away from the fire. That way I get a good chance of smoke coming across the meat before it exits the grill instead of just going straight up. So that's all I have on prepping your fire for the kettle grill for smoking. Please hit the like, subscribe, and thanks for watching the video.